I'm going to do a brief description on the parts. You're going to need an Arduino Uno. At least that's how I'm going about in this project. Ideally, if you use the affiliate links below and buy one of these prototyping shields, it will make your life a little easier when it comes to doing the connections. Originally, I was going to show you on one of these boards and using all the jumper cables, but that was really messy, and then you will still end up having to find some way to do a final assembly or connection. So if you use the shield, it's almost semi-permanent. You could almost use it that way. It's really up to you. You're gonna need a 2-relay shield or module. This is 5-volt relays, and that's gonna be used to power the motor for opening and closing. You're gonna need a PIR. You can actually use SRHC 505 or an HRSC 501, but I have the 505 handy, so that's what I will be using. So let's get started. So for ease, like I said, if you get one of these, you just basically want to assemble it on top of your Arduino. That's it, it's assembled. That's it for this part. So what I'm going to move on to next is the relay module before we get into doing the wiring or the significant wiring. These are the jumpers we'll be using. So I'm going to briefly go over how this module works in case you're not familiar with it. This will make it a little easier for you to see what is what. So this is very fine print on the module. On the module, you will find this connector here. You don't need to do anything with it as long as JD, VCC, VCC is connected. You leave that alone. This is how we're going to be wiring the module. And these are going to be the connections to the Arduino. And that's these pins here. But first, we'll get started with this side. You're going to need 2 wires cut to about 2 inches long and the ends stripped. And then you're going to need some longer wire, and this is to power the motor through the relays. This is going to be 12 volt, while these relays are going to be working off of 5 volt. So as you can see from the diagram here, this center one or COM2 is going to go to the motor positive. The center one here, COM1, will go to the motor negative. I'll put those on last. Now you'll see here, NO2 goes to NO1. NO is normally open, and that's negative ground. So I will use my short wire here. But before I put it on here, what I want to do is, on one of the ends, I'm just going to join my ground wire. You may solder these if you like. I'm not going to. So NO2. So I'll go ahead and put this one in here. Tying it. Then it goes to NO1. And if you know how to do this, you could go ahead and skip the video ahead. Next, we're going to do the positive. So same thing. We're going to use our power wire and join it at the end here. And that's NC2, which is normally closed. So I'm going to put my 12 volt here on NC2. Make sure all of these are open before you try to insert your wires in there. That's going to go to NC1. So right there, we have our connections. These are going to be for powering it. So and now we're going to go ahead and connect our motor. So the motor positive goes to COM2. It's this guy here. Motor negative goes to COM1. That's why I'm using these modules, because it makes life a lot easier. Originally I had designed a schematic and I was going to show you how to build something similar to this, but I found some people may not want to go to the trouble of building one of these, so it's just easy to buy one of these. These are a few dollars, somewhere between $2 and $5 depending where you get them. So that's it for the assembly of this. So, and we're connected to our motor over here. So next, we're gonna go to start doing our connections. So we have our prototyping board here. So this specific board, this is a ground connector, a positive 5 volt connector, and then this has the numbers on the side here, which are probably very difficult to see, but you'll see them if you buy this. So this connector goes to ground on the Arduino. So I'm gonna go ahead and start our connections with that. So I'm gonna do our 5 volts and our ground. For that I'll use these jumpers with a female and a male end. One goes there, one goes there. Now, since this is our ground, I'll put it on the ground side. And since this is our positive, I'll go ahead and put it on our positive side. As you can see, that's a little easier than using one of these. We would have to power it, make a whole bunch of jumpers. Then, IN2 goes to pin 7. So I'm gonna be using, let's see, let's pick some colors here. I'll use this grayish white wire and a yellow one, just because. So I'll do N2 is yellow, N1 is white or grayish. So N2 goes to pin 7. So go ahead and put that here to pin 7. N1 goes to pin 8. So I'll go ahead and put that here to pin 8. So we've completed our connection to the relay module from our Arduino. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this schematic away since we really don't need it anymore. Now we have our PIR. I'm going to use 3 female male connectors. So the PIR, if you're not familiar with it, has a positive, a signal, and a negative. It's actually labeled on here. You may be able to see it from there. That's the positive and that's the negative. So I'll do our signal green, our positive red, and our negative gray. So I'll go ahead and connect that to our negative rail here, our positive to our positive. Okay, this is a very rough diagram. So here we connected relay in 1 to pin 7, relay in 1 to pin 8, relay in 2 to pin 7. Let's see if I could focus that a little bit. It's focused, it's just very difficult to see. PIR goes to number 6. And I'll have these diagrams as PDFs to make it easier. So that's pin 6. Next we need to connect our open and close switches to our motor. That's what these guys are for. So I'm going to go ahead and connect this one to the open and this one to the closed. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the open. So this cable has a negative, positive, and signal. So these work off of 5 volts. So these are going to go connected onto here. So we're going to need some male jumpers. So we have our 3 jumpers there. So I'll go ahead and use the green one on the green, our gray one on the black for ground, and our red for the positive. So I'll go ahead and connect our ground to our ground rail, our power to our power 5-volt rail, and since these are open, it goes to pin 4. So I'll go ahead and connect that to pin 4. So that's done. Then this is our closed, same way. So I'm just gonna go ahead, I'll use blue for our signal, gray for our ground, and red for our power. And I'll go ahead and connect that just the same. Gray to the ground, red to the power, and blue is gonna go to our close switch pin, which is number 2. So I'll go ahead and connect that to number 2. So we are almost 99% finished with our connections. The last connection we really need is to power our Arduino. So these 2 wires that I'm using for the 12 volt, I'm going to connect it to my power supply that's actually in front here. And Arduinos can take up to 12 volts at least. So the benefit of that is that if you input 12 volts to your Arduino, then you can power your Arduino and your motor from the same connection. Now these 2 wires that I'm using here for the power for the motor actually have these connectors on the end, which actually work perfectly to put these pins on here. So I'll go ahead and connect that to our ground, the ground. Obviously you're gonna do a more permanent connection on yours. I'm demonstrating it here, so that's why I'm using these connectors and this method. Connect it to our Arduino. And our circuit is 100% completed. All we really need to do is see this working. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna screw this into this scrap of wood, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm sure this looks like a mess in the video. So we have our Arduino connected here, our relay module here, our PIR here, our motor here. So I'm gonna go ahead and power this. What will happen is this has a time delay of about a minute, I believe. I programmed into it to allow this to warm up. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on. So the way that I've programmed this is if this is partially open, it will close it. If it's all the way open, it will close it when you first power it up. So I'm gonna let this go through its cycle and then I'll be right back. Okay, so our 90-second warm-up time should have passed. So as you can see, I waved my hand in front of the PIR and it activated. Once it finishes for 5 seconds, it will close. Then if we wait another 20 seconds, then we should be able to reactivate it. Let's give it a try. There we go. It's complete. So if you have any questions, put it in the comments. If you like this project and these videos, please give them a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date in any new projects that I put out.